Noel kneels among the destruction. He is told that he always walks side by side with death. He asks with blood on his face if his interlocutor is going to follow the same path. The narrator recalls the day he decided to become a seeker, against the backdrop of a village by the sea and mountains. Noel reacted with surprise when someone called her name while holding a book in their hands. He warns not to let anyone look down on you. Noel explains that a real man shouldn't allow himself to be looked down upon, quoting the catchphrase of his grandfather, a former seeker. Two people are discussing a mountain of monster corpses and asking if they are in hell, while a third one is talking about a famous seeker nicknamed Grandpa. The group discusses the mysterious Immortal. One of them laughs and compares him to a demon from hell. He apologizes for his fascination with fighting valuable monsters and asks to transport them carefully. He asks in surprise if it is really the Immortal as another man quickly approaches them. They discuss the limits of their abilities and challenge each other to a power struggle, mentioning the famous seeker. A warrior with a huge sword says that his interlocutor almost died because of his pride, while he lies on the ground. He warns his interlocutor not to look down on him by expressing irritation. Noel enthusiastically asks for permission to become a strong seeker like her grandfather, and he replies that he wants to become a seeker too. He says with surprise that he didn't expect to see someone here who isn't afraid of death. The man happily says that his grandson will become the strongest seeker, and the latter thanks him, but notices that he smells of beer. Noel reads a book that explains that class's hidden potential that manifests itself after age 10, and the man says that she needs to choose a class. He said that when the time comes, he will show it to the appraiser, leafing through a book with graphs and diagrams. She reads the book with surprise and ponders who she will become, listing a swordsman, a warrior, and a mage. Noel repeats the word announcer in surprise, and he assures her that there can be no mistake. He explains that due to their weak personal combat performance, they cannot act alone, but only strengthen the combat power of their group with words. He consoles Noel by promising to make her a better seeker, despite doubting her abilities with the weakest class. He says that she now looks like her late mother and that she has the same talent for being a seeker as he does. He yells at Noel to get up, reminding her that the monsters won't wait for her to get up, and she replies that she believed her grandfather's words and started training. A man with an axe calls for a fight, while a woman nearby notices that the usual gentle grandfather has disappeared. Noel recalls the harsh training with a demon trainer who was not afraid of death, and at the moment of impact, he shouts He is tired, but he continues to train, and another person encourages him not to give up and lists tasks. Noel says that after his parents died, his grandfather became his entire family and promises to never leave him alone or die alone. She noticed that his eyes were unusual and asked him what was wrong while two guys watched her. He screams that she is not capable of such a thing and demands a fight back, while she lies on the ground after being hit. Noel scornfully remarks that he is crying, and the other man prepares to hit him, reminding him that his grandfather never forgave such people. The man explains that a real man should not allow himself to be looked down upon. He turns to his grandfather, who is training with a sword, and asks him to repeat the exercise again. He said he had thought about it for too long, expressing regret and fatigue. He remembers that his grandfather taught him the announcer's fighting techniques and said that monsters exploit his weaknesses, so he desperately trains to avoid death. He delivers a powerful punch with his fist, while the other one deflects the attack, holding a weapon in his hands. He reflects on his goal of becoming a seeker and officially recognized, despite the fact that he is now an announcer and wants not to lose to his grandfather. He said that while thinking about this, he continued to train with his grandfather. He runs forward tensely, with a determined expression on his face and beads of sweat on his skin. They try to wake Noel up, and another person demands an explanation from the grandfather and rushes him. He anxiously informs his grandfather that their city has become a high-level disaster zone due to void-related abyssal monsters and a danger level of 12 of 13. Noel reassures his interlocutor, saying that the main thing is not to panic and to understand what is happening if he is a student of the Seeker. He insists on staying, and he promises to buy time until help arrives, despite warnings not to leave here. Noel explains that monsters are everywhere, there will be no help, and they can't escape, to which the man asks why she is going into battle alone. He assures his grandfather that he will protect him at any cost while he calls him for help. Noel screams in panic to his grandfather, remembering that he soon heard the screams of many monsters. She sits with her head in her hands and thinks about how many monsters there are around and what to do if her grandfather is no longer with her. He sits on the floor, watching the fading streaks of monsters around him. Noel exclaimed joyfully that her grandfather had won, and the room suddenly became silent and the ominous air began to disappear. He cries as he remembers his grandfather, who admitted defeat and ironically noted that he was called Immortal. Noel says that while you fight for life, you walk side by side with death, and acknowledges the end of the seeker's path. He, with wounds on his face, asks if his interlocutor is going to follow the same path. He recalls the words about how one must become a strong man and not leave loved ones alone, so as not to be afraid of death and walk side by side with it. He reluctantly admits that he didn't keep his promise to Noel and asks for forgiveness, calling her his grandson. He began to say that he would always love her, reaching out his hand to hers. 2 years later, he and she meet at the ruins in the middle of nature, talking alone. Noel looks at her opponent with determination as he panics and screams that he can't fight her. He shouts that he will distract him by showing determination in a tense situation. He orders Lloyd and Walter to attack the enemy from both sides at the same time. A winged creature rushes into the room, destroying walls and causing a loud roar. He fires his pistol at the flying enemy, destroying the walls around him. The two exclaim that they have arrived, expressing strong emotions and surprise. They arrived at the capital of the empire, Varian, and someone exclaimed in admiration, "Wow!" The crowd discusses unusual vehicles, someone admires a carriage, while another points to an airship in the sky. He is surprised by the number of races in the city and admits that the city is impressive. Two characters discuss how the Varian Empire has the most Besden and that everyone who carries a weapon in that city is a seeker. Noel reassures his interlocutor, saying that it's okay, while he tries to explain what the abyss is and apologizes for something. He thinks with distrust about the plans of others, while two surprised men admire her beauty and ask to get to know her better. He reflects that 2 years have passed since then and he has inherited his grandfather's ambition, living in the capital to become the strongest seeker. She reflects on the fact that the strongest is considered to be the one who never loses, but it is impossible to understand that you are better than everyone else. He says that he has gathered the strongest friends, but his class has the worst personal combat performance of all. Noel states that she has already made up her mind and will pursue her goal, realizing that the announcer alone cannot become the strongest seeker. He reflects on the fact that the team will become the strongest when the strongest representatives of different classes gather, and a person's potential is revealed only in a team. He introduces himself as Lloyd, the swordsman, with a sword on his back. He says with relief, "Finally," and the text refers to Walt as a warrior. Tanya greets Noel in the morning, addressing her as a healer. A group of 4 members of the Beyond Sin Eva clan gathered, and one of them decided to explain everything again. She explains that they need to exterminate the lesser vampires that have settled in the western part of one of the abandoned mines. Noel explains that after all the vampires are exterminated, the abyss will disappear, and the main goal of the quest is to destroy the vampires. He gets in advance and asks which of them will be the leader. He stated that it was him, while Noel listened attentively nearby. At night, against the backdrop of mountains and the moon, he reflects on the upcoming events. The story explains that the Makai world is connected to the demon world, the abyss, which expands until the demon lord dies. A group of warriors prepare for battle, and one of them says that they are seekers. The image shows 2 vicious monsters with one eye that are rapidly attacking. Noel orders them not to be surrounded by enemies and demands that they focus, assigning Tanya responsibility for logistics. He screams and delivers a powerful blow, destroying the barrier in front of him. He fights the monster while 2 others watch and comment on what is happening. He explains that lesser vampires cannot use magic, but they reproduce quickly and can overwhelm with a crowd. He is surprised by the multiplication, and Noel explains that they are subordinates controlled by a puppeteer from a distance. He explains that enemies are physically strong and alive as long as they have a head on their shoulders, confirming this to his interlocutor on the battlefield. He said that everything was under control, but the other one objected that if the puppeteer died, the subordinates would also die, and refused to agree. Noel explains that the C-rank mission is to kill all the subordinates, as killing the puppeteer is too difficult for them. She looks up in surprise, watching something fall from the sky in the distance. The image shows a close-up of a terrifying creature with its mouth wide open and one eye bulging out. Noel looks forward with determination, preparing for the challenge ahead. He abruptly orders everyone to retreat, expressing great excitement. He screams in panic at Noel, asking what to do when a terrifying monster called the puppeteer appears. He explains that it is gas from the caves and asks if it is dangerous, and she is surprised and asks what the smell is. They are ordered to distract the vampire from Noel, and Tanya is instructed to go to him. He sharply hit his opponent, who cried out in pain. He shouts and prepares to attack, drawing his bowstring in a fighting stance. He, in armor, with a powerful blow breaks through the wall behind which a creature with long hair and a frightened look is hiding. He despairingly admits that the enemy is much stronger than his subordinates and curses. He explains that the gas has stopped Noel from moving and that they can't cope without the announcer, warning that they won't last that long. He calls in panic and asks her to tell him what to do in this situation. Noel demands that the announcer finally say something and find out who he really is. The man says that this class is the weakest and the announcer is not capable of anything, and the other laughs and advises to become someone who is not looked down upon. A warrior with an axe fights off a sudden attack from a monster with long claws and an open mouth. He warns not to dare attack, watching the approaching creature with claws. Noel has a broken bottle in his mouth and he tries to pull it out with his fingers. He demands to look at him and calls his opponent arrogant, preparing for an attack. He is adamant that he has changed and is fighting to keep the promise he made to his grandfather. Noel yells, ordering Lloyd and Walt to retreat as the screen displays a tactic effect that increases the result of actions by 25%. He struck with his sword but admitted that something was wrong while his one-eyed opponent looked at him in surprise. He uses an announcer's skill called Fighting Spirit, attacking with great force. He demands to be trusted, she replies, yes, and the other confirms, got it, with a determined expression. He attacks the enemy with an axe, while the other defends himself with a shield, preparing for a clash. Noel stands in the distance, watching his two warriors prepare to attack a massive monster. She panics and warns him that it's a trap, and he reacts in surprise to the destroyed wall. Noel is surprised to notice three subordinates who have been hiding in the darkness all this time. He checks his watch and says that if the calculation is correct, there are 18 seconds left. He orders Tanya to constantly refresh the buffs and says that he will take care of his subordinates, and Lloyd and Walt should prepare for a strong attack. Noel watches as he charges towards two enemies, preparing to attack. He shouts stop, and uses a skill that temporarily stops the enemy. Noel watches from afar as a monster with a huge eye and a toothy mouth attacks another creature. He yells shot, and fires freezing bullets from his weapon in a dynamic combat move. Noel fires a powerful beam of energy, striking the enemy, who is sent flying into the air from the impact. He's swearing about missing a shot, while the other one is counting down the remaining 18 seconds of his shot. He warns that in 4 seconds the opponent's hand will reach his neck, preparing for an attack. Noel stated with determination that everything was going exactly according to plan so far, attacking the enemy with a powerful blow. He smashes the floor with a powerful blow, causing destruction around him with a wild expression on his face. Noel happily noted that he had attracted the attention of his opponent, who had a crazy expression on his face. He clenches his fist in concentration, preparing for action. He screams that the end has come as he attacks the armored enemy. The puppeteer's subordinates attack the enemy, explaining that there were many of them due to the high birth rate of the lower vampires. He says with a sword in his hand that if the puppeteer dies, the subordinates will also die much faster. A huge clawed hand delivers a powerful blow, tearing the surface and causing an explosion of fragments. A monster with one eye and a fiery head attacks fiercely, then finds itself surrounded by sharp ice shards. He happily reported that they had managed to kill the puppeteer, watching the retreating enemy. Noel delivers a powerful blow, piercing the monster, which screams in pain and blood. He attacks the creature sharply, knocking it back with a powerful blow. He shouts that he has it all figured out and there are only 18 seconds left, while she watches him from afar. Noel is having trouble breathing after inhaling the gas and says there is not much time left, but there was no other way to win. He explains that his most powerful technique increases the attack power of allies by 10 times, but after the attack they receive a colossal blow and are unable to fight for some time. Noel says with a smile that he is not afraid and assures that everything will be fine. The sun sets over the mountains and a voice says the battle is over, everyone is tired, that's how the announcer fights. He reveals that Noel wants to become the strongest seeker by being an announcer. He says that every day, together with his comrades, he gets closer to fulfilling the promise he made to his grandfather. On a balcony in a futuristic city, several people observe the surrounding architecture and discuss what is happening around them. He raises his mug and makes a toast to the cleansing of the lower vampires, calling for everyone to drink to the bottom. He loudly orders 3 beef steaks and a beer, and she reads the note in surprise. He calls the waiter loudly and orders stewed duck with pancreas. They discuss their success and earnings of 5 million fils, noting that this is the maximum they have ever made and that they have been able to get this far. He is happy with the 5 million fils he earned for killing the lesser vampires, but he believes they could have earned much more. He explains that he was unable to negotiate due to the team's disagreement, while the other says that they will receive 5 million for the work, and asking for another 500,000 would be rude. Noel says they've been doing this for a year and have achieved results, while the other one claims they are equal in strength at B rank. He watches the man who looks at her in surprise, taking a sip from his glass. He noticed Noel's displeasure and asked what was wrong, and she replied that she was very upset, but assured him that everything was fine. She asked him to leave her alone, despite the others' attempts to listen and discuss money. Noel reacts with surprise to his interlocutor's words about the fact that seekers should be an example and not focus on money. He says that his grandfather advised him to always watch his money, and she agrees that money is needed for everything, even for buying things. He says he doesn't hold a grudge and the issue has already been resolved, but she thinks arguing with him about it is pointless, even though it's unpleasant. Noel asks Walt not to bring it up, explaining that he wanted to do what was best for them, and he agrees. She screams that she is angry at her interlocutor and demands that he wipe the stupid smile off his face when something falls with a crash nearby. He yells at Noel, accusing her of greed and warning her to think about the consequences for the sake of the group's reputation. He indignantly says that the one who shouted about 5 million should not pretend to be a victim and spout such nonsense. He shouts that it is not strange to be happy about a well-deserved reward, and Noel replies that he did not try to increase it because of his stinginess. She confessed her guilt, and he agreed and said that she was, as always, right. He is indignant at the way he is treated, and the other one replies that it is cute to use age to prove one's point. Noel asks if he is ready to die and reproaches him for his pride, offering to pat him on the head and noting that with age his body has grown, but his character has remained childish. He fires a pistol at a man who is standing near a large dome, preparing to attack. He accepts the challenge and says he is fed up with his opponent's insensitivity. He shouts that you shouldn't think that you can win a fight while drunk and calls it vanguard. He shouts enough, and tries to stop the conflict between 2 other men. Noel remains silent while he and the other man argue, and he says he shouldn't talk like that, and she calls them both idiots. He explains the distribution of 2 million fils into the group's treasury, and he is shocked and indignant. The hero explains that after the battle with the lesser vampires, the equipment became unusable, and repairs will cost 2 million even with a discount. She explains that everyone will receive about 250,000 fils, showing the coins in her palms. He convinces her not to be upset about the small profit, explaining that the group's treasury will grow and that she can earn more by taking on a similar order. Noel explains to Lloyd that the quest came from another clan and such requests are rare, so they won't be able to complete them often. He explains that requests to clear the abyss are managed by the country and are only given to clans, and Beyond Blue is not a clan, so they can only carry out tasks from clans. He reflects on the duty of the seekers who clear the abysses, and how such tasks bring good money and honors. He explains that in order to successfully develop and earn money, the seeker will have to join an existing clan. Noel asks Lloyd about the amount in the group treasury, and he replies that, taking into account the money from the mission, there is about 12,800,000 fil. He stands silently at the table, while the other 3 ask in surprise if she is serious. Noel suggests creating a clan out of their group called Beyond Blue. He says that now is the right time to receive tasks to protect the Abyss directly from the government if they want to develop their group. He suggests turning the group into a clan to receive missions to clear the Abyss directly from the government, and the others listen attentively to his idea. Noel says with surprise that something needs to be done, turning to the interlocutor. He firmly stated that they would create their own clan. He told Noel that to create a clan, the state needed to invest 20 million fils, assuming she already knew. He explains that they have become stronger and more famous over the past year, so it is not profitable for them to continue working under subcontracts, and another person is surprised by the cost of creating a clan. Noel announces an investment of 7.2 million fils, while another man expresses doubt and says he understands but thinks it's crazy. He explains that he intends to use the funds sparingly, and he says that he will have to be repaid when the clan gets back on its feet. Noel explains that there is very little left of the fortune he inherited from his grandfather, and this amount is not something he can invest without hesitation. He talks about his protective coat made from black dragon heart fiber and the high-class weapons he acquired while becoming a seeker. He says that the money he needed before becoming a seeker turned into a large sum, which he distributed to the servants after the incident to help them get back on their feet. Noel explains that creating his own clan is more profitable than working as a subcontractor, and admits to being cunning in order to fulfill his ambitions. They discuss high rent prices and the need to have a building in the capital to establish a clan base. Noel reassures his interlocutor by saying that he knows a place with cheaper housing options, despite his doubts. He asks why they remain children in society, and she explains that they are still newcomers and will not be able to succeed despite their strength and age. Noel asks when would be the best time to create a clan and how many years it will take to see success, noting that without a clan they will remain newbies. He discusses the truth in Noel's words and the fact that experience cannot be gained without trying, as well as the difficulties with work due to age. He is surprised when another says that he is ranked 8th on the Emperor's scale of men you can rely on and is liked by girls. He told Tanya that she was sweet, modest, and popular with men, and she reacted with embarrassment. He explains that the state encourages seekers so that more citizens become them, and wonders what type of seeker will inspire young people. The crowd admires the famous seekers, who are held up as idols for their strength, youth, and beauty. Noel explains that successful clans are more likely to have beautiful members, while another agrees that youth and beauty bring advantageous positions. He is tired of working as a subcontractor and offers to quickly create a clan, dreaming of money, alcohol, and women. Noel demands that Walter hold his horses and asks him not to joke during a serious conversation. He slammed the table hard, causing tension as the others watched intently. Noel speaks seriously about the problems of love affairs in the clan, and another character jokes and asks not to be angry with him, calling him the leader. He declares that he will not compromise, demanding that she return the money from the treasury and announcing his withdrawal from the group. They discuss the pointlessness of running on the spot, and one of them believes he should go the other way, even if it conflicts with Noel's opinion. He looks up and doubtfully says that it is just a dream. She exclaimed, surprised by Lloyd's words, who replied that they would have had to create a clan sooner or later anyway. She says with anxiety that she can't wait any longer, and he holds back tears as he listens to her. Noel is glad that his interlocutor agreed and asks when they will discuss the details. They agree to meet the day after tomorrow for lunch to have a few drinks and take a break from work. He said he would pick her up, against the backdrop of an unusual building and trees. A man with a gun yells at Noel that the situation is catastrophic, and she sits on the floor of the room and listens to him. They run away and one of them shouts that they ran away with their money. He warned Noel that the situation was very bad, pointing to what was happening ahead. He shouts that they have escaped with their people, expressing despair and anger. Noel screams in despair that it's about money. He, reading the document, realized that Lloyd had made a bad investment and lost a large sum of money. He explains that due to the proposal to create a clan and the use of the group's treasury, the debtor fled the imperial capital of Tanii before dawn. Noel laughs through his tears and sarcastically invites Walter to laugh with him, expressing his despair and anger over the situation with Lloyd. He explains that he heard about a good request at the bar that night and went to Lloyd to discuss it, and received a letter from the owner of the tavern where he lived. He explains that the pursued did not use horses to avoid being tracked, and suggests catching them by asking the gatekeepers which gate they came from. He firmly declares that he will find and punish Lloyd, and his interlocutor suggests that they immediately look for the gatekeepers and asks what he will do next. He reproaches the other for stupidity and warns of a deadly fight if things go badly, and the other only smirks in response. He explains that the money embezzled by Lloyd is already lost, but the two prominent men will have to pay in full, despite their decision to run away. He confidently says that with her buffs he will definitely win, and she replies that killing the healer first is the basis of battles and asks if he can fight against Tanya. She asked him with a smile if he finally understood, while he looked tense and worried. He gets angry and says that we can't just leave it like that, and the other one explains that the opponents ran away because they knew the truth. He explains with determination that his principle is to pay 100 times more so that no one looks down on him. He looks ahead with anxiety, trying to understand what is happening around him. A man approaches Noel, saying he is going to do the laundry and asks her to give him something. She joyfully exclaimed that he was, as always, handsome and slim, and he asked if she had interrupted her workout. Noel warned Marie to open the door only after receiving permission, and she covered her mouth with her hands in fear. He listens in surprise to a conversation about two guys, and one of the girls hides her face, discussing the type of handsome and muscular older brother. Two people watch the explosion, and one of them exclaims in admiration that it is gorgeous and wonderful. Noel explains to Walter that he is not a fool, but a perfect warrior, and he does not understand why they are going to a bar. He said that they were both good in their roles and asked them to leave the thinking to him. Noel announces that he wants to order from everyone in the room, drawing attention in the large, crowded room. He shouts that Lloyd and Tanya have embezzled the group's treasury and escaped, and demands that they be found alive. Noel explains that she is going to hire the guys to catch Lloyd and Tanya, and the other one wonders what she is achieving by revealing this. He reproaches his interlocutor for making the order too public, explaining that otherwise he would not have recognized the person who is looking for them. He accepts the order with determination, and she remarks that without Noel, they are considered a tasty morsel of pie. They discuss the order being accepted and try to figure out where the others who left the imperial capital just before the closures might have gone. He says he'd like to discuss the order and thinks he probably hit the jackpot with this guy standing behind him. He asked if there was anything that couldn't be discussed there, and Noel replied that there wasn't much and suggested they come behind the bar. He asks why he didn't do it, and he replies that he won't say it for free, and reminds him of the 2 million reward. Noel says that catching these two is beyond the capabilities of their group, and the other replies that there is no point in knowing the location if they can't catch them. He offers help for a reward of 500,000, to which the other person is surprised by such a sum. Noel insists that 500,000 is too little and demands 1.5 million. He said it was desirable, but could be dispensed with since many other groups had accepted the order. He is worried and says that if he waits, one of them will catch them and deliver them to him. He insists that if money is stolen, it must be returned immediately, despite the abilities of the children and the possible loss of time without information. Noel states that she has no intention of giving anything and will pretend this conversation never happened if the other person doesn't like it. He asked if she was against her leaving and clarified if it was okay. He asked where they were and was told that they had been met on the Burley Road at the South Gate and that they had gone either to the village of Carnell or to the village of Evelyn. He said he had some unfinished business and told them to gather a group to wait for him and Walter, and the other asked what the business was. He stands with a bright hairstyle, watching as two uniformed men climb up to the wounded man on the stairs, while a third holds him by the hair. He said he would tell me later. Noel said that they left the capital with informants, and the other said that he would go to catch up with Lloyd and Tanya even without her if she couldn't fight. Two people walked down the street of the village of Carnot, near the imperial capital, preparing to deal with the traitors. He asked in surprise if his interlocutor really had a date in such a village. He shouts, ordering them not to move, and calls himself a deafening warrior. He shouted at Tanya, trying to grab her, while Noel and the other man prepare to fight, emitting electrical energy. He notices something sudden with wide eyes in shock. He is in armor fighting three opponents who look surprised and try to fight back. He fights in armor, and the other one, disappointedly saying "Damn. I give up," retreats. He shouts at Lloyd, accusing him of betrayal, and he regretfully replies that he is sorry, but receives a sharp refusal to remain silent about it. He explained to Lloyd that he understood the essence of the letter and asked what happened to the treasury money and the money received for the purge of vampires. He accuses Noel of lying about bad investments, and he replies that he most likely lost them. Several people discuss the rising prices of lesser vampire materials and mention cards, roulette, and dice. He screams, accusing the other of losing the money they risked their lives for, calling him a complete idiot. He explains with an expression of despair that he did not want to take the team's money and that it is difficult to be a leader because of the accumulated debts. He delivers a powerful blow, screaming with effort, while the other tries to defend himself by throwing his arm back. Noel accuses him of gambling debts and calls him an idiot, but he asks him to stop and admits his guilt. She asks if he can fight Lloyd and Tanya, to which he replies that he is ready to fight even if it is a battle to the death. He asks with surprise if his interlocutor is really ruthless. She begs Lloyd to forgive her while he tries to stop the conflict by offering to leave everything as is. She admitted that she also played, but Satsuto Luid was to blame, and he continued to play alone, which is why she did not win and wanted more money. Noel accuses him of using mind control, and he responds with surprise that he did use it, but doesn't see a problem with it. He explains that according to the laws of the Empire, the use of mind-altering skills is permitted if it helps criminals confess to their crimes. Noel vehemently denies the charges, saying she will not be found guilty of any crime. The man thanks for the good show and asks to hurry with the payment of the promised 500,000 fils. Noel says he's paying up and asks to wait, but the other man demands to pay the debt and says he won't wait any longer. He says that the money will be there soon and asks to wait a little, but the interlocutor doubts because he doesn't have money. A man in a helmet holds out his hand and shouts, demanding that something be given to him. He yells for Silverchan not to be touched, trying to protect the other black-haired man. Noel accuses another of trying to steal from the announcer and argues that his hand-to-hand combat skills are better, and the other promises to pay money and asks not to call him a liar. He, in armor, asks in surprise what is happening, looking at the sudden event ahead. Noel stands before the crew as the others recover from the fight, and he firmly says that they need to move on. She apologized to Noel for the wait and called loudly for Finocchio Barghini. He said slaver and she said the name he in horror, watching him on the ground. He asks with a serious expression what his interlocutor is going to do with them. He reflects on the fact that in a prosperous imperial capital there is always a shadow and illegal organizations, the mafia. Finocchio Barghini talks about the youngest members of the family, Luciano and Don Barghini. He reflects on the life of another, describing him as a man of extremes with contradictory traits and the nickname Pierrot the Mad. Noel agrees without a problem when the other asks if he has permission from the other two and says he would like to get straight to the point. He claims that he is selling two people, Lloyd and Tanya. He lies on the floor in panic, and she speaks with a grin about the quality of the slaves. Noel explains that he decided to call his friend Finocchio to return the money that Lloyd and Tanya ran out of selling something back. He asks to rely on him and promises to begin inspecting the goods, and also instructs Finocchio to find a good owner for them. Noel asks if they want to be slaves, and one of the captives is outraged at having no other choice but to become a slave. He explains that theft is punishable by 10 years of forced labor and suggests handing the prisoner over to the military police, warning of the brutal conditions in the mines. Noel stands aside while one man says it's better to be a slave with a good master, and another says the percentage is only 2%. He explains that he is ready to give about 10 million fils for the slaves, considering their condition, and expects to receive a share of 8.4 million fils. Noel, shocked, asks what this means, expressing bewilderment and surprise. He explains that the Church of the Holy Cross is the largest religious organization in the empire and asks for donations of extra money. He explains that customers have started spending less to appear poor, and because of this, they have to significantly reduce the selling price. Noel accuses his interlocutor of not checking the item in a timely manner, and he explains that he can buy the item at a normal price after the order expires. He thanks her for her understanding and confesses his love, and he replies that they are also in a difficult situation. He shouts in surprise that the price has risen to 12 million, and Noel in response is perplexed by what he is even talking about. He demands to slow down, naming the amount of 13 million fils, addressing Noel. He calls Noel and tells her the amount of 14 million. He listens in amazement as the man suggests making everyone think he bought them for 30 million instead of 15. Noel explains that the value of a product in the marketplace is determined by the interaction of supply and demand, and sometimes cost can determine value in reverse. He explains that slaves bought for 30 million are worth much more to the main merchant in the capital, and can be sold for 90 million. He explains that it is better to raise the price than to try to lower it and asks if this is true. He says he will speak frankly and is ready to cooperate if their stories match, but the interlocutor warns of the risk if the truth comes out. Noel offers to join his family and become a leader, reminding him that he is the only one who tried to squeeze money out of him. He loudly declared that he would buy them not for 6, but for 15 million, and received consent. He angrily calls the other dirty and unshaven, and the other accuses him of losing the negotiations and calls him a mad Pierrot. He threatens that if she tells about what happened, his family, mistress and friends will be eaten by pigs. Noel says he has returned what was stolen and will not stay any longer, and the other man replies that this is his reward. He states that people who spend other people's money on gambling are not allies, and traitors will betray again, saying goodbye to his interlocutor. She calls out to Walter for help, pleading with him. He angrily demands help and accuses the interlocutor of being useless and unwilling to help at an important moment. He yells at Walter that his head is filled with nothing but goblin snot and tells him to die, and Walter responds by asking what in the hell is going on. He called Walter to go, and she said goodbye to Noelchik, promising to meet again. She says she can't fight without allies, but even someone like her can make a lot of money and encourages people to work harder. He furiously accuses the other of betraying his friends and selling them into slavery. He firmly states that he will use the nickname and become the strongest seeker, preparing for battle. He, with a wound on his face, says that he can no longer fight and asks to be allowed to leave. Someone says the name Noel while paying attention to an object on the ground. He states that he is selling Lloyd and Tanya as slaves. He asks in despair if she loves him and demands to help him. He shouts insults at Walter, who asks in confusion if he is in hell. A few days later, he watches the city from a high bridge, lost in thought. He scratches his neck thoughtfully as he stands by a building with an arched roof on the street. Noel walks into a bar and notices a man sitting at the counter, silently continuing to drink. He just received the remaining amount from Finocchio and is transferring his share to another person. He says the money was returned, but he is not happy because it was money he received for selling out his allies. He asks what she plans to do next, and she replies that she needs to fill the hole left by the two in Patty. Noel says that all the talented seekers are already members of some party, and he thinks it won't be easy. He says with a serious expression that the situation is not like that. Noel explains that Lloyd and Tanya were good seekers, but only Sirank and not indispensable in the imperial capital. He says there's no need to overdo the sentimentality, explaining that the pain from what she saw is because of Tanya's true nature. He demands that Noel take Tanya, calling her a devoted dog who tolerates insults. He, holding back his emotions, offers to hit himself if it helps, and notices that the other person looks as if he wanted to say this. He reflects on the differences between himself and Noel, wondering why he is younger, weaker, but acts more confident. Noel explains that strong seekers must understand the reasons for their punishments, although cowards will hate them, but in the end they will appreciate the justice. He says that most are cowards, expressing doubt and disappointment. Noel explains that the main danger is not enemies, but the lack of allies, and to attract new members, it is necessary to establish a party policy. He argues that the expression rising scoundrels is perceived better than a rabble of some people. He acknowledges the strength of his interlocutor, and Noel calls him a weakling in response. He tells Walter that he knows how strong he is and offers to start over by rebuilding Beyond Blue after the losses in battle. Noel tensely says he needs someone to talk to, extending his hand. He clenched his fists as he sat on the chair, and she said she didn't want to be a seeker anymore. He apologizes with his head down, while the other one calmly looks up, holding something soft in his hand. He was thinking about what to do after returning home when someone called out to him. Noel stands with his arms crossed on an empty street, looking straight ahead. He asked what happened, and she replied that that was exactly it. He asks if she'll give him the whiskey, noting that the chances of drinking it in her hometown are slim, and she agrees. Noel looks away thoughtfully, as if pondering something important. He muses out loud that he can't tell if the other person is compassionate or heartless as they walk away. He asked Noel if he knew who Tanya really loved. He says that he would only be a replacement for Noel, and she replies that if she came to talk, she would choose him, but it doesn't matter. He tells Noel that among many people he is the only one who is special and different from everyone else. He admitted that he was a leader that was not deserved and he accepted it. He wishes Noel good luck with tears in his eyes and says that he must definitely become the strongest seeker. Noel asks if he's really going to attack her in a public place. She asked defiantly if it was time for the opponents to come out, preparing for battle. Noel angrily calls them a dictator and demands that they pity him, saying that he is alone in the evening and is so proud of them that he would like to end his life. He promises to fight blindfolded and gives a head start, while the enemy demands to hurry up and orders him to die. He screams in pain as he falls to the ground, while the other one asks in horror what is happening. Noel quickly fights off the enemy's attack, striking back. He says he won't kill them because they're in the city, after which one of the opponents admits he was knocked out. He stands among falling sharp objects and says he prefers something else instead. He threatens to use the years of his interlocutor to convey what will happen if he goes against him. Noel spots a snake in the city and notes that such skin is rare here, after which he is surprised by what he sees. He explains that snakes need to shed their old skin to become stronger and evolve further. She stands in front of a large round screen with notes, watching the empty street and the fountain nearby. A view of the empire's capital, the city of Itrai, is shown, without visible characters. One says the black-haired girl at the city gates would suit her, while the other doubts they'll see her again. She screams and tries to protect herself from the powerful explosion that occurs next to her. He's talking in shock about a beauty who just ran in front of him, and another asks what he's talking about. Noel admits she's hurt this morning. He says that every morning at 5 a.m. he starts training, which continues regardless of his fatigue. He explains that an announcer's skills only affect the team, not themselves, so announcers need to constantly keep themselves in shape. Noel clenched her fist and he yelled that he figured out how the damn Imaki worked. He attacks with determination, striving to achieve his goal despite the difficulties. Noel is determined to create the strongest clan. A woman greets another person good morning, and a man with an apron inhales the aroma and says how nice it smells. He asked where the toilet was and received an answer, and then thanked him for the reward of 1 million fills. He said that no one would come anyway, standing at the entrance to the building with several people in the background. Noel says he makes too much noise and is wasting his time looking for new members, while the other one says that bars are great for recruiting during the day. He explains that it is impossible to create a team of such individuals and that hidden talent is difficult to find, but this should not worry the interlocutor. He wearily admitted that he had come to invite someone to a party, while the other one happily offered to join Lightning Strike. He reminded her that they had left everything to him, and she replied that no one would join if he invited anyone. Noel warns that he will join them if his conditions are met, and another character marvels at the power of his negotiating methods. He says that they really want him to join them and promises to do everything possible to make it happen. They ask if everyone agrees and receive affirmative answers, after which one of them screams in shock. Noel proudly declares that he created Lightning Strike and is the leader, while the other admits that he may be right. He regrets not going on an adventure, and another girl asks what he will do if he doesn't get a party together. He asked if she already had a candidate for recruitment, and she replied that she would then move on to recruitment. He talks about Hugo Capelius, calling him an invaluable puppeteer, and says that he wants to make him his partner. He asked if she was Noel Stolen, looking at her with surprise. He delivers a powerful blow to the enemy, and he calmly watches the fight from afar. Noel confesses to his theft, and another character wonders how he could take something without sensing the presence of the ability. She said she came to join them. Noel looks on silently, expressing deep inner tension. He listens to the woman whisper that children cannot be seekers and questions the fact that she is still a child. Looking back, she realizes she hadn't realized before how deceiving appearances can be. Noel looks at the wounded man with concern, and she panics and says that he shouldn't die. She says that this man is a female legend as he falls back from the impact. Noel yells at Logan, expressing anger and accusing him of something. The image shows a girl in profile with short blonde hair, looking forward without expression. Alma introduced herself and said that she came in response to an advert for a party and that she wanted to join them. He explains that he wanted to assemble the party's core from men only because of a previous love incident, and she repeats the word woman with surprise. Noel asks if he's going to start the interview, and she doubts that children can be seekers since she's still a child. He indignantly declares that she is already an adult, and the other girl objects to her, saying that this is not true. Noel thoughtfully answers a question about the age of puberty, and another girl asks Alma permission to ask a few questions, to which he agrees. He asked Wolf about her favorite food, and she answered strawberries and asked him not to interrupt her. He named 3 numbers and his favorite book, and she replied that she was a C-rank scout. Noel asks about his experience as a seeker, and he replies that he has none, and discusses the usefulness of archers and scouts for exploring the abyss. She explains that she just registered as a seeker and that her grandfather used to train her in the mountains, while her interlocutor regrets her lack of experience in training. She asks why he decided to become a seeker, and says that she is only interested in him, the grandson of the Immortal. He explains that his grandfather is missing his right arm because it was cut off by the Immortal. She asks if he wants revenge, and he replies that he is simply curious to know who he is, the hero's grandson. Noel explains that her grandfather died 2 years ago and asks her not to apologize to her for what happened, specifying that he passed away peacefully a month ago. He asks the name of his interlocutor's grandfather, who replies that there were a lot of people who fought with his grandfather. 2 men tell of a secret order of assassins, the Alcor Judicarius, leaving the other 2 surprised and perplexed. The group listens to a story about the legendary assassin Alcor Judicaria, who created and became the leader of the order, whose organization is more brutal than the Yakuza and kills even babies for money. Noel and the others stand at the table while he says with sharp teeth that this is not a funny joke. The man with sharp teeth said that their deception would not work here and demanded that they stop talking nonsense. He admitted that he doesn't like to interfere in other people's interviews, unlike the idiot Wolf, and expressed his opinion with a grin. He claims he can't pay attention to the sow because he's heard complete nonsense from her, and asks Noel if that's true. She explains that the Seekers' taverns have status restrictions, and violators are beaten by the bar's regulars. Noel hears about this for the first time and prepares to answer the question asked by the man with the mask. He asks if it will be enough to prove that he is stronger than the arrogant monkey by standing in front of the other 2 characters. Noel thinks she can figure out if she really is Alcor's granddaughter as a fight breaks out around them. He calmly says that he will do whatever he wants, and the other man threatens to kill the woman and asks if she will complain. Noel notices the cold, murderous expression on the other man's face and wonders why the sweat doesn't stop running down his forehead despite his fear. It creates a powerful energy blast directed forward, demonstrating strength and determination in battle. He says with a grin that everything is happening too slowly. She suddenly delivers a powerful blow to the opponent's face, who cries out in pain. Noel listens in surprise as another character reports that the battle was over in 3 seconds. He says that Alma was holding back and if she wanted to kill him, she would have done it instantly. He exclaimed "You," and Noel responded with a decisive "accepted," in a tense scene. He says she with a tense smile, clearly feeling excitement or surprise. A man with a furious expression shouts that there should be no fights in his bar. He warns that if they catch him, they will make him pay for everything, and the other one swears and says that now everything will fall apart. They are arguing over broken furniture, one is demanding compensation, and the other is yelling at them not to push and calling them an idiot. Noel and he discuss the amazing fight and are surprised that she is actually Alcor's granddaughter. He says that her eyes are not like others, and they show a readiness to do anything to win. Noel recalls his grandfather's advice to never fight an immortal, as he uses unusual methods and is unpredictable. He warns Alma not to underestimate the danger of the Seeker's work, acknowledging her strength, and she replies that she is free now and does not mind. He says that battle requires strength, not the right mindset, and warns that weakness in the first battle will lead to death. Noel envies the strong man, admitting that her arrogance is not due to a narrow outlook, but because Alcor taught her to be so. He asks Alma what happened to her when she suddenly responds to his name. She looks straight ahead with a serious expression, without saying a word. She said she was hungry, standing on the street with shops and people passing by in the background. He squeezes the fabric tightly, expressing strong emotions. He asks her if this is her first time in the city and notes that she is settled and well, to which she replies that her grandfather taught her to blend in with her surroundings. She asks if the woman she's interviewing trained in the mountains to become an assassin, and is told that it was training to be promoted from a scout to an assassin. She explains that she hasn't raised her rank, but has fulfilled the requirements for rank B and only needs to go through the ceremony with the assessor, and the interlocutor asks why she didn't join the Order of Assassins. Noel explains that he was considered strong but rejected due to his lack of skills, and she explains that she was rejected because she wasn't right for them. She looks down and has tears in her eyes, expressing deep sadness and inner struggle. Noel was surprised when he asked her if she had told him about the changes in the organization, and she replied that they didn't need old-school assassins. He said that the Order of Assassins was an independent secret organization, but would soon reorganize under the auspices of the Emperor, conveying the words of the current leader of the Order. Noel explains that the organization will now focus on espionage rather than assassination, and the Order will rule the Empire. He complains that discussing important information while eating fried buns is inappropriate, and she reminds him that it is classified information. Noel worries about her life and asks if she will be killed if she knows the information, and the other one calms her down and asks what she is afraid of. He says that in the worst case he will use her as bait and run away, and she in response thinks this is terrible. He asks what the interlocutor knows about buffers, against the backdrop of an explosion or destruction. They discuss that their duty is to support the party, and that instead of their own power, they provide strong buffs to allies, although they don't know the details. Noel explains that buffs have different effects, and the interlocutor asks what other tasks buffers have besides supporting allies. The character explains the dangers of misjudging a battle and introduces his announcer skill, Team Attack, warning of the risks to the entire party. Noel explains that buffers should be the party captain and control the flow of the battle. He explains that the announcer's job is to command during battles and use appropriate buffs for the combat situation. He explains that being a buffer is difficult and asks Noel if she can handle the task. He says that now she needs to catch some monster, to which she asks again, monster? She explains that the monster is a mutated fauna, hunting which is one of the jobs of the Seekers, and says that she has heard about them. He shows a drawing of a killer rabbit and explains that it is an aggressive monster rabbit with an iron horn that often makes mistakes, and praises him for his drawing skills. Noel shows a picture of a rabbit and says that under his buffs she should catch iron-horned rabbits. He says that with his strength he can easily catch them, and she replies that she doesn't need buffs and asks why she puts them on. Noel says it will be easier to catch them, but the other guy doubts he can handle the improved skills. He explains that the skill can stack up to 5 times, and the interlocutor confirms that scouts have a speed boost skill that doubles their speed. She is surprised that another character mastered the skill from the start and explains that it took a lot of training due to the sudden increase in speed. Noel says it took even his former allies half a month to get used to his buffs. She asks what about Alma? She confidently states that she is showing good results. Noel casts the spell announcer skill, Fighting Spirit, as she prepares to attack the enemy. He feels a strange feeling and notices that energy is endlessly flowing from the depths of his body, and the next skill will increase the effect of all actions by 25%. Noel suggests to Alma that he will be a problem if he can't adapt to her buffs, explaining that Lloyd was the one most accustomed to his buffs in the first party. He orders to go and catch the killer rabbits, expressing determination and a commanding tone. Noel casts Fivefold and unleashes a powerful attack, causing an explosion of energy in front of him. She announced that she was back, and the man recoiled in surprise. Noel shows 13 unconscious rabbits and says she knocked them all out in 0.8 seconds. He explains that she was able to catch everyone in 0.8 seconds and adapted perfectly to the first buff, although she could have caught a couple of rabbits in 10 seconds. She asked in surprise if she had passed, and the other one noted that she was a real genius. He says 5-fold acceleration with concentration, preparing for action. He delivers a powerful blow, creating an explosion of energy that destroys the ground in front of him. He throws the toy unicorn sharply, which crashes into the wall, leaving black spots. He noted with surprise that something was amazing as he looked at the unusual creature. He says with a smile that this is the power of the announcer's buffs. He showed her the killed rabbits, and she replied that she had killed all 13. He was surprised that she caught them all, and she replied that she should have caught only one and praised him for his efforts and time. He says the test is over and cancels the training since she did a great job, and she is surprised that they are already finished. She is excited about her first job and the opportunity to see the abyss, and Noel explains that the task is not related to her and suggests reading. He listens to the village headman's request to subdue a group of bandits who have appeared near the village of Mince. Several seekers discuss how hunting monsters isn't their only job, including treasure hunting and bounty hunting. They discuss that while they are paid for the work, it is a good way to make money, but the reward is less than for clearing the abyss. He says the journey will take about 10 hours, and she considers the task a good way to test the strength of their new party and does not expect a large reward. He says decisively that they will take everything they have, explaining it in simple terms. He says there are no more rooms available, and she complains of pain and fatigue after a long trip, wanting to take a bath and sleep. Noel said that there was nothing to be done and suggested that they move on, and the other man said that they had more rooms today, and the girl asked if they needed to go further. 3 people are discussing the occupancy of rooms. One says that everyone is busy, another complains about being late, and the third expresses annoyance. She happily says that she likes to visit different hotels, and the man says that they have a free room. Noel asks in surprise if this is true, and another character confirms his words. She happily says that the number is surprisingly good, and he looks embarrassed and tense. Noel suggests that all must sleep together, but she replies that it is uncomfortable and that he is too worried. She lies on the bed with her arms stretched out in front of her in a quiet room with a plant against the wall. She asked Noel if he had taken a bath and advised him to do so too, noting his well-trained body. Noel complimented his interlocutor's muscles and asked if he could touch them, to which she agreed a little. Someone gently touches another person's shoulder, expressing tenderness and concern. She apologizes and says he said little while she touches his chest. She explains that building such a body requires an unwavering dedication that cannot be achieved through regular training, and compares the force to avant-garde seekers. She explains that such a body can only be achieved through hard training, not talent, and that is why she said so. She screamed in pain when someone sharply poked her in the face with their fingers. She panicked and asked him why he did it, and he replied that he was going to bed first and told her to hurry and take a shower. He explains that such a body can only be achieved through hard training, not talent, and he is confident that he knows this better than anyone. He lies on the bed and thinks that he has no talent, but he will continue to try despite this, and someone advises her to wake up tomorrow morning. He orders her to become a man who will not disgrace the stolen name, and she listens to him with tension. Noel notices that it is already morning as he watches the sunlight and birds above the building. He noticed something sudden with surprise and fear. He remains silent and then calls someone an idiot with obvious irritation. Noel lies in the arms of another person and says that there must be a limit, even if it doesn't bother the interlocutor. He speaks with irritation about the large number of fried buns, and another character responds with pleasure. In the village of Mince, someone asks the village head if they haven't seen each other for a year, and another shouts offensive words and gets hit. He joyfully exclaims that he hasn't seen Beyond the Blue for a long time and thanks for his quick arrival. Noel noticed someone asking everyone for tea while watching from behind the door. He feels sorry for the leader, and the other one suggests dropping the topic and talking about the bandits, mentioning the one she keeps talking about. According to the village head, the bandits looted and destroyed a neighboring village over 5 days, killing many residents and taking all valuables and food. Noel confirms that the information is more than sufficient and offers to discuss a reward for clearing out a group of 20 bandits and completing the order. She says that 500,000 is a large sum, but for 20 bandits it's almost nothing, because in the end it comes out to only 25,000 per person. She asks in a reserved tone if they want to let the village suffer the same fate as its neighbors because of money, and the interlocutor desperately vows to pay. Noel says they're starting right now and asks to relax and wait for them to return. He and another man are walking up the stairs, discussing upcoming events. She asks sheepishly if they are going to defeat them right now. She loudly wishes them luck and says that she will root for them, and he assures them that everything will be done in a flash and there is no need to worry. She says that it was worth teaching him, and he says that he carefully keeps the bamboo dragonfly that Noel made for him. She loudly demands that he send Spin and says that she will prepare a feast with her mother, and he replies that he will wait. He accuses Noel of manipulation, and she responds by demanding that he shut up and is outraged that she is being insulted. He demands not to ignore the situation, and he suggests to stop fooling around and looking for bandits. They ask the boss where they are going now, standing at the destroyed camp. A handcuffed man sits on a chair with two bound women on either side of him in a dark room. Gil lost and was informed that the broken beer keg was the boss's favorite. He stands in front of the body on the floor and says that it is dead, while three people watch the scene from afar. They argue, one accuses the other, demanding to admit guilt, and the other replies that he did it himself. He says no one will know about it, but others agree that he did it. Three stand amidst the destruction, and one shouts about using a deafening fight. Several people in shock try to understand what happened while looking at a man standing in front of them with injuries on his face. He says the name of the technique Razor Gordo with a determined expression, addressing the enemy. They discuss a major criminal that the searchers defeated and note his tenacity, comparing him to a cockroach. Noel explains that he can only defeat a scout in the bandit class in a one-on-one fight, but he cannot handle him and his subordinates at the same time. She tells him not to worry and promises to take care of his subordinates, warning him about the risk of triggering the bandit detection skill if he gets too close. He explains the plan, advising to first use the scout's stealth skill and approach the city unnoticed. He explains that even at a distance of 300 meters, his skills will allow him to immobilize all his subordinates, and then he will use the skill Deafening Howl. He explains that Gordo, with his high rank, must resist, but initially his subordinates will carry out his will. Noel orders Gordo to be killed with a determined expression on his face. Several men noticed the approach and reacted in fear when one of them began spewing black liquid from his mouth. Noel confirms Gordo's death, and another man explains that with the leader dead, the bandits will become a disorganized mob and their numerical advantage will be weakened. He orders to continue sowing chaos among the enemies until he himself arrives. Several creatures fall and scream, counting in turn from 2 to 5. Noel says with determination that he will not let them win, despite his wounds and fatigue. He is surprised by the woman and asks if she understood the meaning of his order, because they had to be killed, and she caused a mess. He explains that the escaped bandits are dangerous and will attack everyone in desperation, but if they are killed, the rest may run away in fear. He explains that when clearing out bandits, everyone is killed, and if anyone allows them to escape, they will be held accountable. Noel laughs, saying that this is exactly what he was afraid of, while the other one fearfully asks not to approach the monster. He squeezes the ring in his hand with force, emitting a bright light. He promised to kill those in the middle, and she agreed to take care of the rest, using her scout skill. He shouts for them to hurry up and open the gates while the others try to deal with the situation around them. Noel says in despair that he can't die here because he still has a lot to do. He shouts at them not to come near, but he reacts to what is happening with a serious look. He lies on the ground with a wounded face and says that he can no longer move. The image shows an old house against a backdrop of rocky ground with no visible characters. She asked if he was sure he wanted to do this, to which he loudly replied that of course he was. He says with a grin that it can't be that brats like them know everything about wine, showing a small bottle. He threatens with a sword that when they return to the village, it will be their end, standing next to the defeated enemies. He thanks her for the food and says it was delicious, and she responds with a burp, and he remarks that this is inappropriate. 3 people sit at a table, discussing a shelter in the forest and asking permission to take things, to which they receive consent and gratitude. He says he doesn't need gratitude and wants to get the rest of the reward, and the other one promises to bring it, realizing that it's hard to rest when you're working. Noel excitedly asks for permission to become a seeker, turning to those sitting nearby. He enthusiastically agrees to become a seeker, and the others explain to the waitress the reason for her combat class rating and ask her to forgive her. Noel asks if a lot of money is needed for a training school, and he explains that to become a seeker you need to register with a guild and attend schools. She explains that tuition and classes are free, but do not cover students' living expenses, and her interlocutor responds to this with understanding. Noel explains that even working part-time while studying requires significant savings due to the high cost of living in the capital. He explains that one can become a seeker without investment by becoming an assistant, and she asks in surprise, an assistant? She explains that the job of assistant to the seekers is dangerous, but will allow you to earn money and observe battles, helping to carry luggage and point the way. Noel thanks for explaining that this is just one way to become a highly paid searcher and gain enough experience and knowledge to do so. He advises to first gather information to find a way forward, and he promises to try to learn as much as possible. She asks if she will be accepted into Beyond Blue if she becomes a strong seeker. Noel's eyes widen, expressing intense surprise or shock. He declares with determination that he will definitely become a strong seeker, and another man calls her a manipulator and asks her to shut up. Noel thanked him for waiting while sitting at a table with another person, addressing the man standing in front of them. He asks in surprise what this object is that he sees in front of him. The man laughs and explains that he bought the wine for 100,000 fils when he had some extra money and that it is quite famous. Noel thanks him for his help and agrees to try the wine that is offered to him before the award. He suggested not to be shy and drink, explaining that the drink would become tastier over time. He sits and holds out a cup, the headman invites them to drink, and two people look at them in surprise. He explains that the host should drink the wine first, and the other reacts with confusion to this rule. Two people are sitting at a table discussing a strange wine, while a man and woman standing there suspect that the drink is poisoned. He has his eyes closed and beads of sweat on his face, as if he is concentrating or tense. Noel accuses his interlocutor of lying about the number of bandits and explains that the one who lies will not treat him to wine for 100,000 fils. The man panics and says he didn't know the wine was cheap, but the voice explains why. He sharply reproached his interlocutor for his lack of intelligence and knowledge of the intricacies of wine, believing that the inhabitants of the imperial capital had exquisite taste. He admitted that he wanted to kill and take the money, and then was surprised that his mouth began to move on its own. He turns to his father in surprise, not believing his eyes. He says regretfully that he is very sorry while another person sits next to him watching him. He accuses her of attempted murder and believes that a simple apology is not enough, and she justifies her actions by asking the reason. He looks at the wound in surprise and says that it is not just a scratch, but something serious. Noel stares forward tensely, making a loud noise. He screams in despair that he is very sorry, lying on the ground, and he watches him from afar. He noticed something on the ground with surprise and asked what kind of creature it was with an unusual eye. Noel says the word with tension, expressing determination before an important event. Someone shouts that their eye hurts and demands that they stop, warning that apologizing won't help. He says he will make sure the other one looks like trash, starting with the left eye, then the nose and ears. Noel threatens to demand 300,000 fils and orders all the money from the house to be brought, while someone fearfully asks for forgiveness and promises to pay immediately. He panics and apologizes, explaining that the money belongs to the Gambino family, fearing the mention of the mafia and the threat of death. He screams in panic that if he gives the money, it will be the end for him, and Noel asks to spare her father, agreeing to give everything. He cries and warns that if he doesn't give the money, he will lose his eyes and the seekers will no longer accept their requests. Noel asks what they will do if bandits or monsters appear and hands someone a package. He checks the money in the house and says that he will forget about today for them, asking the head if he agrees with this. He lies on the ground, breathing heavily and sweating, surrounded by sounds of panic or fear. He invited Alma to go, and she agreed, replying that she understood. Noel is crying loudly, tears streaming down her face, expressing intense pain and despair. He sits talking to a happily smiling girl who has her hands clenched into fists at her chest. Noel says that the life of a seeker is unexpectedly difficult, and the other asks if she hates it and clarifies in what sense. She explains that she realized that their job isn't just about making money, but about killing monsters, and at the same time, she assures them that everything is fine. He apologizes to Noel for the unpleasant experience on the mission, and she replies that she is fine and there is no need to worry about the past. He says it's still very unpleasant, and she thinks it's still offensive to disappoint a girl who looked up to him. Two people are walking across a bridge. One offers the other a hug and explains that it's important not to take everything on yourself, but to rely on your older sister in difficult times. Noel asks her to stop treating her like a child, and her interlocutor replies that Noel's cute face is to blame. He thanks her for her concern, warning that he will use his authority as a leader if he touches her, and the other person considers this too cruel. Against the backdrop of the starry sky, the words airship and wow are heard, accompanying the appearance of a large flying mechanism. He examines the airship and explains that it belongs to the third regalia star of the Goat Dinner clan. Two people stand back to back with swords, talking about the 7 star clans and their rewards from the Emperor. They discuss the medal from the Emperor as a symbol of power and influence on the ownership of the airship, noting the impression of the number of powerful seekers on board. He reflects on his limitations and dreams of flight, comparing himself to an insect crawling on the ground and those who soar in the sky. Noel says he'll get it in a year, but she says that's wrong and says it'll be 1 year. He raised his hand to his head thoughtfully, and she looked at him in surprise, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. She looks forward with determination despite the tears in her eyes. Noel admitted that she had fun today, and he replied that he was glad. Her tactics were interesting and they made good money together. He says he's learning more and more about her personality, and she's surprised and calls him cute. Noel stands confidently in his cloak, his hand on his belt, ready for action. She declares with determination that she will fight. Noel assures that he will always be with his interlocutor, despite the threat. He looks up in surprise, and the scene ends with words about a continuation. 3 days before meeting Noel, Alma visited the Order of Assassins hideout in a city with Gothic architecture. He approaches the throne in the Great Hall, and someone with handcuffs on his hand watches him. She asks if the interlocutor really wants to become a member of their order, explaining that this is why she came. He doubted that she was really Alcor's granddaughter, noting that it was not very noticeable. She is disappointed and says that such a non-entity is in the order, and he sharply asks what she said. He demands the examiner to shut up and begin, confirming his role. She looks up in surprise, as if she has just realized something important. Noel looks thoughtfully at the flashes of light, pondering what is happening. He falls to the floor in horror and says that it is impossible, trying to protect himself from the blow. She accuses him of having known everything from their first meeting and calls him an incurable idiot, and he, shocked, asks if she really is Alcor's granddaughter. He wounded another by assuring him that he would no longer worry about his own incompetence and asked him not to worry. He orders her to put the blade away, and she replies that it is enough, preparing to attack. Noel is wide-eyed and shocked by what's happening. They attack quickly, one of them jumps with a spear, and he watches the fight from behind. He introduced himself as the head of the order, Simon Gregory, and she asked in surprise who he was. He says he recognizes strength if she is the leader, and she asks why he tried to finish her off and why he stopped her. She says that her grandfather spoke of a test where only the strong survive, and the losers give their lives to the god of the Shadow Kingdom. He says the old rules have been removed and allows the other to go, confirming this with the word aha. Noel says he'll ask a few simple questions, and he's surprised he passed the combat test. He asked if she had killed Alcor and she said yes. He explains that the hero was easily killed, EX rank loses power with age, and someone lied about him dying of old age in a letter. She admitted that for as long as she could remember, she always wanted to kill him. He says that even someone with an EX rank and in charge of the order would not be able to defeat a terrible person in his prime. He says it was death in human form. He tells Alma that she is not Alcor's granddaughter, but actually his daughter, and explains that Alcor went mad after losing to the Immortal. She confirmed that she was not Alcor's granddaughter, but his daughter, and explained that she was one of many children born to kidnapped women. She explains that this man did not need a successor, he wanted to create the same creature and believed that he could erase the stigma of the past by rewriting history. He reveals that Alcor's obsession tortured his siblings to death, leaving those around him in shock. Noel explains that she was the most successful product for a human and should not have tried to kill the Immortal who, even after losing his mind, did not forget the fear of defeat. She admits that she still hates the man she killed, but feels satisfaction, and he replies that he died several years ago and has long since become an old man. Noel reflects on being left alone and realizes that even the Immortal has died, and an abyss connected to a Lord-class monster has appeared in the city. He is surprised, and he explains that their organization will cease to be secret and will focus on espionage and service to the Empire. He asks if this means they won't kill anymore, to which she replies that killing is now just a means to an end, not an end in itself. She looks into the darkness in surprise and then begins to laugh despite the tears streaming down her face. She says she spent 21 years of her life against her will, without friends or love, and ultimately feels her power is useless. He stands there and demands that something be returned, and she, in despair, asks why she lived. She screams with tears in her eyes, demanding that her life be returned to her. He says that the Order is not the only place for power, and she, with tears, calls them seekers. The image shows Noel with white eyes looking forward, holding a book in her hands, while another person stands next to her, listening intently. He tells that the grandson of the Immortal works as a seeker in the Imperial capital, and she mentions an interesting story. He explains that the other one doesn't have a fighting type job, but an announcer, and that's the weakest job, as everyone knows. She says that in a year, Out of the Blue will become one of the 7 stars, and he is striving for an unattainable dream. She says she wants her to get lost and be as strong as he is. He tells Noel that he saw her working hard and notes that despite her lack of talent and betrayal, she kept going. He reflects on how the world is completely rotten and if someone worked hard, they were doomed to remain without reward. Noel asks to see the moment when all the hard work will pay off and promises to fight together forever. Shown is a view of the Imperial capital of Betrayal at night, with its tall spires and starry sky. He stands on the roof and complains that he has received another ridiculous task. The image shows the bustling capital of the Atrai Empire with numerous buildings and people on the streets. He asked where they would go first as they descended the stairs into the mysterious room. The master explains that the muscle fibers of the black armored dragon are suitable for armor and underwear, and he asks not to shout. Noel explains why the other man's weapons and armor are excellent, but will quickly become unusable without proper care, addressing him as the owner. He declares that he will not lose the bidding, and the other man explains that he has come to introduce him to a new ally. She introduces a new member of the Beyond the Blue party, and he expresses interest and hopes that they will get along. She is surprised by the amount of interesting things around, and he advises her to go to the gun shop after the gun shop and make friends with the monk who owns the shop. Noel met with a new ally, who introduced him to Alma and explained the reasons for his visit after a long separation. He and 2 others are discussing a girl, whom one of them calls the girl. He says with his head down that he will open a new door for her. Noel explains that this is the Appraisers Guild where you can increase your job rank, and another character is happy that he feels powerful and congratulates him on his promotion. He asked if she could upgrade from a C-rank scout to a B-rank assassin, and she confirmed, adding, "Yeah, oh, by the way." He explains that when you rise in rank, a pattern appears on your body, and says that it wasn't necessary to show it. He explained that he was giving a short tour, introduced Alma as a new ally, and she told him how their tour of the Imperial capital had gone. He replied thoughtfully, reflecting on how exceptional newcomers were always welcome. He loudly asks, "Please," with a pleading expression on his face. He calls on people not to be shy with delight and tears in his eyes. He loudly invites her to come at any time and says that she will receive special treatment. She told Noel that she was hungry and wanted to eat, to which he agreed to take a break and then go to the skill book alley. She tells Noel that she has to go on some business and asks him to wait, but he runs away without listening. He called to the woman standing among the ruined buildings and a large skull to come to him. He says Loki's name while standing in a narrow alleyway, while another man watches him with interest. He says he's sorry, but he's walking on thin ice, and Noel replies that they shouldn't have gone into such a slum and suggests they make the deal elsewhere. He explains that he didn't want to make a deal in a dangerous place and lives on the cutting edge of society, ignoring baseless rumors. Noel and another man argue. He reminds her of the reason for their meeting, and she accuses him of betraying his former allies. He praised the work of the information broker, and she explained that with the help of Mimica she can copy the appearance of any person. One says Noel can change her age and gender, while another notes her refined taste and calls her a devilish killer. He says that we need to try to free Hugo Coppelius from prison and make him an ally. Noel asks to contact her by owl mail for the next job, and he confirms that he understands and is ready to do it. He hurries to the well-fed cat restaurant, and Alma, having finished her business, criticizes her for being slow and asks where she is now. Noel muses on the need to assemble a team, while another talks about trying to make the killer an ally in order to free Hugo. He muses on the need to recruit 2 more people to go into the abyss, noting that it wouldn't be that easy. Noel, holding another man's leg, reflects regretfully on his youth and hopes, calling him a tramp from the slums. He stands with his hand outstretched, watching a wounded man with a staff who is trying to get up. Noel turns to someone, asking them to wait and explaining that he doesn't want to hurt them. He looks away thoughtfully, as if he is pondering something. Noel warns him to leave, and another man explains that a large silver coin is a lot of money and advises him to hold it carefully. He corrected that he was a guy, not a girl, and the other person apologized for the mistake. Noel is furious and refuses to accept the money, which he claims has been touched by someone else's dirty hands, and demands an explanation. He leaves, saying that they will do with them whatever they want, and another person tries to stop him, shouting, "Hey, wait!" Noel, standing, ordered not to touch him and to know his place, while the other one breathed heavily and admitted that he understood. He noticed something with fright and exclaimed to himself. He squeezes another person's hand tightly, expressing determination and support in a moment of tension. He stands in a fighting stance with a stick and says that he does not like to fight, but will not allow himself to be mocked by calling the opponent's position unamateurish. He grips the wooden club tightly, preparing to attack or defend. Noel, with a threatening voice, orders to die here and now, expressing determination in a tense situation. She got a job as an announcer despite her desire to become the strongest seeker. He wonders how the enemy has approached so quickly, watching the action with tension. He strikes hard with his club, looking forward with concentration. Noel, in a fighting stance with a katana against a backdrop of mountains and the rising sun, prepares for battle. The image shows the title of the manga chapter with Japanese and Russian text, as well as part of the character's foot in lace-up shoes. Despite the grandeur of the imperial capital, he reflects that not everyone can enjoy its benefits. He describes the slums as a place with a pungent stench, lifeless looks and poor hygiene, where homeless people and vagrants live. Noel, calling the enemy a monster, says that a decent citizen would never set foot in such a place. He orders the enemy to die, preparing for an attack. Noel tensely orders to act quickly in a critical situation. He sharply repels the attack, delivering a powerful blow with his hand to the opponent. He ponders the unusualness of the enemy and his weapon, suggesting that he may be a former mercenary. Noel watches in amazement as a man calls her a terrifying acrobatic and asks if she's a dancer or a ninja. He denies being a ninja, claiming he is an announcer, and the other man is surprised and asks if he is really an announcer. He said he thought the other person was strong and replied, "Excellent." He stated decisively that from now on he would begin to use his skills in preparation for the fight. Noel ponders the need to recruit 2 more people, and another man joyfully exclaims that he was found in just such a place. She apologized for being rude and said she was interested in her interlocutor, preparing for an attack. He notices that this guy is definitely strong and his level can be compared to Alma if he is as strong as he imagines. They discuss Noel's delay, and she waits calmly at the table, saying that she is simply waiting for him in the morning. Leisha confirms her identity and remarks that she hasn't seen Alma in a while the 2 men prepare to fight. Miguel scolds Noel for waving her stick despite being warned to wait quietly. He shouts, ordering the ring to be tied, which falls to the ground. Noel realizes that the man has signed a contract of slavery, and he promises to make sure he suffers even at the thought of going against him. He notices the argument and asks who it was with, and the other one asks how she ended up in such a place. Noel says he means no harm and wants to have a drink together, while another character tries to find out more about what happened. He threatens to burn his crotch so he can't write anymore, and he swears at him and warns him to watch his language. Noel threatens to destroy another man by pointing a gun at him, and he reacts in horror to her words. He threatens a man with a gun, demanding that he obediently answer questions, and he, in a panic, tries to understand why a woman needs a gun. They say that Alma should stop waiting for the slowpoke and eat first, to which she replies that she will do so with pleasure. He asked how things were after joining Noel and whether she had gotten used to him, to which she replied that she was doing well and Noel was enough and she was happy with him. He says that more people are needed to descend into the abyss, and another character notes that he is constantly thinking about finding new allies. Noel notices the unfamiliar accent and asks where he is from, and he replies that he is from the distant southern city of Saltsland. He shouts that everything is fine and is ready to tell something, expressing fear and despair. He explains that Dallenbert's family entrusted him with running an underground arena, but accused him of embezzling money from his superiors, and she explains the difference with a mafia group. Noel listens as the man explains that the territory belongs to the Luciano family and the Dallenberta family would not dare to set foot here. He, holding a gun, gets angry at his interlocutor, who apologizes and says that he is very sorry. He reflects on the fact that he will not be charged with the murder of Halfling, despite his connection to the Dallenbert family, and wonders what to do next. He says that someone with such power will become a new member of his party, while another one prepares to attack with a staff in his hands. Noel says firmly that she has made her decision, and the other girl assures that it is not a problem. Before the tour of the capital, he stands at the door, announcing a break between chapters. He greeted Noel and she replied that she had come for him. She said that the rooms were really nice but there were no rooms left and the other one said that there was nothing to be done. Noel asked if she had gotten used to the hotel, to which she replied that for the most part she had, although the hotel was not as nice as this one. She said she couldn't get up at 5 in the morning, and he replied that if she came earlier, she would join his workout. Noel is bored, but he asks to tell something interesting and explains why girls don't gain weight when they cut back on exercise. He asks if this is his autobiography, to which the other replies that it is a record of the battles he fought in. He explains that it describes all the battles from the formation of Beyond Blue to the recent battle with the gangs, and the other one is surprised and is going to look. Noel asks for a favor, and he says that he is tired and bored, and warns her to choose her words wisely, listening to her. She asked in surprise if he was choosing his words so wisely, and he replied that he wanted to touch her body. Noel screams for them to stop and not touch her, and he is desperate and doesn't understand what she is planning. He resists, and the other person demands that he give in and allow the older sister to touch his body, marveling at the strength of his hands. She tries to stop him by screaming, and he says he will kiss her and starts doing it. He asks Mary to help him when she suddenly attacks him. He panics and doesn't believe that Noel is going to kiss a girl, and asks for help to get her off him, promising more pocket money. He is accused of betrayal when he runs away and another person yells at him. He opens something with effort, and she asked in surprise what kind of strange creature it was. Noel struggles to get up and complains that there are no normal girls around him, remembering 3 different girls. He says that he will become the owner of the leg if the halfling dies, and someone with that power will become a new member of his party, while the other apologizes. The two discuss how someone might have found good candidates and was convincing them to join, while one of them remains silent. She assures that this is not a problem because she will kill anyone who comes. Noel says with determination in his voice that he has made a decision and agrees to something. The image shows a cityscape with a huge sign in the shape of a cat and the caption Chapter 19, "I'm disappointed in you." Noel is surprised and asks why Laisha is here, and another girl calls Noel to come to the table. He promises to treat Alma, who is happily surprised, and another character thanks Alma for the treat and warns her about the bill being deducted. Noel asked why he was so late, and she replied that she had told Alma about looking for someone for the party and asked if he had found the right one. He threatens, giving 10 seconds to disappear, otherwise he will kill the interlocutor. Noel urges another to run away while the third counts down the time with his gun pointed at the enemy. He reflects that a man of his caliber could have killed his master and been freed, but now his heart has become dependent and weak. The character declares that he does not deal with the weak, and in his allies he wants to see not a skinny dog, but a ferocious wolf. She doubts, but the other one happily offers to join Lightning Bite and accept Alma, considering it the best option. Noel said he already said it, and the other two are arguing, and one of them says it's impossible. She says they would make a great team, but the other one says there's nothing they can do. Noel and 2 others are discussing the offer to be friends and one of them asks if he's okay with it. The group discusses their past relationships with Tanya and the reasons why they now want to be friends, noting that there were many chances before. Noel notices someone calling her and turns to him, surprised to hear Lloyd's call. He doubts the sincerity of Tanya's concern and says that she doesn't understand a girl's heart, and the other girl wonders if that's a bad thing. She explains that a girl's heart cannot refuse true love, and because of this she does many stupid things, confirming her words. Noel asks to wait, and the other girl thanks Alma and says that she will go first, promising that the next move will be Laisha's. He asks if he knows about a highly addictive stimulant that the Gambino family has recently started selling and gives him bonus information without the main family's consent. Noel warns her about potential problems, and she replies with a smile that she already sees who is acting like a good friend. She ordered to convey an important message to her leader Wolf and reminded him not to forget about it. Noel is kneeling in front of a man sitting at a table, a security guard is standing next to him, and another man is also kneeling. He suggests checking the name of the other one who is sitting silently next to him. Noel says that the boss of the Dallenbert family was furious and asked to tell them that they had already been captured and would be found. He and the others notice something sudden, after which she leaves with her little companion into the darkness. He says that it's all over for him, and even the mafia world fears him, calling him an absolute madman and a true degenerate. Albert Gambino is introduced as the young boss of the Gambino family, subordinate to the Luciano family. He says that the Gambino family managed to catch the bad halfling, but simply handing over the two of them would be of no interest. He chuckled as he wondered why he should take orders from a backwater mafia like the Dallenbert family. Miguel agrees to the plan, explaining that he and the slave will be treated before being handed over, while the other asks for help, surprised by the seriousness of the situation. Noel seriously says that he is not joking, and he, in a panic, asks her to stop making such frightening jokes and does not understand how it came to this. He told his boss that he had brought a debtor who was behind on his payments and explained that he was the village elderman's. He, with an eye patch, shouts that he desperately resisted, but the enemy took his wife and daughter hostage, and he had no choice but to give up the money. Noel explains that if everything he said is true, then he should first file a complaint with the military police. He accuses the other of exaggeration and revenge, and he sadly speaks about how they are spoken of badly, despite their work. He demands that the villainous seeker be brought to justice, while another one promises to punish him, named Noel Stolen, and gives him time to pay the debt. The man with the eye patch says it's time to settle things, and the other man asks in surprise if they really decided to settle things. He says he broke his promise and now he has to take responsibility, and she replies that she doesn't want money except what he owes. He threatens to take away his right hand, citing damage to his right eye. He asked Noel if his class was truly a blade master, and was told that he specialized in slashing rather than swords. He examines the finger and considers the possibility of cutting off the village elder's hand, noting the interest in differences. He asks to wait, saying that he is not ready yet, and hits the surface with a hammer with great force. He says with a grin that some gang won't be able to cut off her hand, and another orders to cut off her hand, declaring that he is now ready. He laughs loudly and praises another, calling him Asian for a good job, while the other looks tense and sweats. Noel leaves silently, and the other demands to get rid of the traitor who stole the money. He grips the hilt of his sword tightly and says that the interlocutor's target is the seeker. He asked Loki what was the matter, surprised by the unexpected invitation to this place. Noel noticed that the Gambino family was targeting her. Noel reads the notes as he explains to Albert that the village chief is being targeted for stimulants and the Gambino family. He says that there is no point in understanding Albert's motives, calling him a real madman and a problem for himself, and the interlocutor doubts her words. Noel listens thoughtfully as another explains that the previous Don did not raise Albert, who was illegitimate and an adult when he entered the family. He heard footsteps and was surprised at their appearance, looking around. Noel notices the armed man approaching and reports that he is already quite close by the sounds. He asks Loki doubtfully if he betrayed her. Noel says the plan is good, but the other guy replies that he will spend the money on moving and is not prepared to defend his reputation at the cost of his life. He states that he has no reason to leave the enemy alive while pointing a gun at him. He ironically remarks that he didn't feel disgusted by his boss, who replies that he had no choice and calls him charming in the end. Noel says that even though the faceless one will die a miserable death, he will be able to come to terms with the fact that he will die at the hands of the interlocutor. He understands the feelings of the interlocutor, who says that he is no longer worth anything and is deprived of his own pride. Noel looks ahead with tension, and the other man confidently raises his glass, saying that he is not going to give up. He says he will crush the Gambino family and advises him to stay, and another man asks if he is forgiven and is refused with the explanation that it is not worth killing for. Noel rudely refuses her assistant, saying that he will interfere during the fight and asks him not to distract her now. He says that the help will be free, but the debt will have to be repaid later when he lends his power. He explains that the drug stimulates brain activity, increasing concentration and strength, calling it a combat stimulant. Noel is surprised when he warns that the effect will last for 10 minutes and his combat power will almost double during that time. She sits silently on the floor, and someone calls her by name and pronounces the name Alma. They discuss the unexpected choice to trade in a job as a gladiator for a gangster's bullet and congratulate him on his big step forward. Noel ironically remarks that teasing him is no fun and suggests they continue the fight, calling Albert a dog and urging him to draw his sword. He asks why she doesn't prepare for the fight, and she replies that it's a fight without any honor. Noel accuses him of stealing money, and he replies that he doesn't want to fight and is still in debt for a large silver coin. She admitted that she was too stupid for complex wording, but she noticed something strange in the fact that he accidentally dropped the money right in front of her. He admits that he cannot afford such freedom, but he is proud that he must kill on command, regardless of the enemy. He states that this is his ability, and Noel orders him to remember it well. He accuses his interlocutor of being a slave to the mafia and calls him an idiot for wanting to fight a fair fight, warning him not to show worthless pride. Noel smirks and declares that he has inherited the blood, will, and techniques of the great hero Immortal. He threatens the announcer with death, declaring that he will never forget his name, although he may not remember it. He loudly introduced himself as Kogut Tsukishima, a C-rank blade master, and spoke of his ability to manipulate cuts. Noel claimed that he inherited the blood, will, and techniques of the great hero Immortal. A night lit by a full moon and the city is decorated with lights, and the caption warns against acting like a spoiled child. Noel smashes the wooden surface with a powerful kick, causing cracks and fragments to fly off. He notices the improvement in his opponent's speed and technique and is surprised that he has reached the peak of his abilities. He glances sharply at the watch on his hand, as if noticing an important time. Noel explains that thanks to the combat stimulator and the rope trick, he has gained an advantageous position and is confident of his victory. He fights, breaking the window and declaring that this is not all. He delivers a powerful blow to the mechanism, destroying its blades and causing a violent explosion. He tries to attack quickly, while the other explains that the fire will burn his clothes and kill him after leaving the flames, warning of difficulties. He is surprised that someone created a vacuum by cutting the air and explains that the flame of a magic bullet cannot be easily erased even by a strong wind. He created a vacuum and deprived the enemy of the oxygen needed to breathe. He prepares to attack with his sword, and Noel watches him carefully, assessing the situation. He realizes that he can't aim at the enemy and says that he doesn't even have time to take a deep breath to use the deafening howl. Noel suddenly draws his sword, making a sound like the blade piercing the air. He is preparing to attack with a knife in his hand, and another man is jumping and shouting that he will not give up. Noel furiously accuses his opponent of underhanded tricks and condemns him for kicking him in the balls, despite the current situation. He accuses his opponent of meanness and says that they are fighting to the death, despite the bites and blows below the belt. He's fighting a huge skeleton when another one screams that his eyes hurt and a third one firmly declares that this is the end. Noel uses the secret technique Flight of the Swallow, firing 2 pistols simultaneously in a dynamic jump. He notices that the enemy can control the cuts in space and warns not to let them go whenever he wants. Noel screams stop, trying to stop what is happening with a look of horror on his face. He notices resistance to mental debuffs and considers it important in combat. He is jumping with a weapon, and the other one desperately admits that he has failed. Noel says he loses consciousness and falls to the floor making a sound. A warrior with a sword declares victory as he stands over Noel lying on the ground with a look of surprise on his face. He explains that his fight is over due to the effects of the combat stimulant, and she can barely move and can't smell blood on her breath. Noel heard the confession that he was a difficult opponent and that the interlocutor had problems with the buffer. He explains that the battle will only end with the death of one of them and suggests resolving the situation through conversation, while the other responds that in battle there is only victory and defeat. Noel says, "You." In surprise, and the other man wonders how he can persuade him if he can buy himself some time. He says with tension and despair that he knows the situation perfectly well, repeating the words simply. Noel yells at a man, holding him by the collar and threatening him with a gun, demanding that he stop acting like a spoiled child. He warns that Master Albert will not forgive mercy and demands not to show sympathy to the enemy, calling him a slave. Noel, with a knife in his hand, says he couldn't resist and didn't want to wait until he was killed. He admits that he doesn't want the guy to die and catches himself thinking about it. Noel and he simultaneously deliver powerful blows, causing an explosion between them. He asked tensely who was in front of him. He stands with a sword, and the one lying on the ground with an exclamation mark above his head admits defeat by saying that he won. Noel shouts that if they spare him now, Master Albert will not forgive him, and the other one, in response, tries to object in an embarrassed manner. She sits silently on the floor, and he addresses her by the name Alma, then pronounces the name he. He said that he managed to call Alma for help using the communication skill, and he was glad that she came quickly enough. He reflects that it would be easy to give the order to kill him, but he would prefer to keep him alive if it is possible and useful. Noel warns that it is dangerous for Alma to fight him without killing him, and after the battle, one of them is convinced of the enemy's equal strength. He orders him to be killed to ensure Alma's victory. Noel looks at him with a smile, and he, waving his sword, replies that it's okay. He asked if he was an ally, to which she replied that she had to kill him. Noel demands that they stop, declaring that he will not kill a woman, and he responds that gender discrimination is bad, and he is stronger, despite his nobility. He muses that a surprise attack could have ended things if Alma had been stronger than Koga, and notes that the enemy had hit a sore spot. Alma pushed him back, though he doubts his strength can be considered significantly greater just because of that. He applies a 5-fold acceleration, aiming to attack the enemy with a sword. Noel watches in alarm as another character jumps and shouts about making a perfect throw. He turns sharply, hearing the sound of swords being drawn. Noel is surprised that he closed his eyes to protect himself and asks what that was. He explains that closing his eyes is necessary to activate the skill, and ponders how he was able to move after being blinded by a flash grenade. Noel, looking at the wounds on his arm, reflects on the class of the Blade Master from the Far East and the consequences of the battle. He desperately asks why he doesn't have the same power as others and asks the devil to take it. Noel says there's always someone better and talks about a power that an announcer like him could never reach, remembering his grandfather's words. He claims that he's finally thinking in the right way, and she remains silent, expressing no doubt. He declares that he will become the strongest, and if the strongest obey him. Noel acknowledges his opponent's strength as he prepares for battle on the rooftop of a building. She resolutely declares that she will definitely kill her interlocutor and no longer worries about how exactly she will achieve victory. He deftly intercepts the dagger, preventing the attack. She activates the scout skill blood poison, which creates a deadly poison from her blood. Noel threatens to kill his interlocutor and declares that he will no longer think of him as a woman. He prepare for battle on the roof, tensely assessing each other before the fight begins. He and she react in surprise to the bright light between them, asking each other what this phenomenon is. Noel warns of approaching military police and orders preparations to retreat as the soldiers discuss the light on top of the building. He said with an aggressive expression that he had already asked to be silent, demonstrating strength and determination. She lets out a small breath and expresses her displeasure with a short "tch." He says with a grin that he has to do something, despite his fatigue and the wounds on his face. He says tensely that he can't say anything, sweating and avoiding eye contact. He apologized to Mr. Albert, admitting that the situation was beyond his control, and he asked if it was really a murder. Noel explains that he didn't promise to kill the Seeker, and he says that the enemy was just a Seeker and laughs at Noel's seriousness. He assures that he has fulfilled his obligation and asks not to worry, and the other asks him to calm down. He asked doubtfully what he should do, and the other replied that this time he didn't need to do anything, since someone had already done everything for him. He asks Rayos to give it to Koga, who agrees, surprised that it was about him. The image shows a gift box with a bow lying on a surface. Noel looks at the gift in surprise, and he asks to open it. He screams and delivers a powerful kick to the ground. He thanks Miguel for his help, and the other man says with a grin that he prepared a surprise and admires the scream. He says with a grin that he is now in a difficult situation, since everyone who could take responsibility for the failure has left, and warns that next time there is no way to lose. He reports that Noel stole and asked him to deliver a message, and the other person asks if it is really for him. He threatens the Gambino family and offers to take his head if he doesn't want it. He repeats what he heard with doubt, and the other one confirms what was said, remaining in the shadows.